Nelson is here, man. This is going to be a hot one.
I was on tilt thinking I was going to be the Batman of weed, which was the dumbest thing ever.
When you speak out against a force like that, they're not up for a debate.
Some turd with a fucking stupid hat on doesn't like the fact that I'm calling him out for poisoning kids.
Black market forever is not gardeners.
The black market is pulling the rec world into its paradigm.
The BM is beating on people that don't have Cat 4 now.
And you're going to blame the farm? Fuck you, you piece of shit, lying, deceptive fucking poisoner.
Don't touch us up lightly. We're going to hit back.
We want to be here and the people want us to be here, but the government does not.
Here we are, Weed for the People podcast, season 2, episode 5, Poetry of Plants. Nelson is here, man. This is going to be a hot one. We were already shooting the shit off camera, man. Lot to say. Don't really need the note card. Just wanted to have a few leading questions as we talked about to get into it. Look, I heard it's been a kind of an interesting weekend. The Dodgers
Good
advanced,
game.
right?
Yeah.
Advanced, that's good. I don't know, some other stuff going on out there. So look, I think just kind of like spinning this into where we want to go with the podcast today. Been a lot of mudslinging and shit like that going on. But really what we are after, I think that the folks on the right side of this debate is making a better industry. And look, there's always going to be monetary interest. But I do think, there is camps starting to form. And, which side do you want to be on in that debate? So, thanks for coming in and having a discussion about, camp poison versus camp not poison and every other camp that exists.
Camp clean.
Yeah, camp clean.
Camp clean.
Camp clean. I like it. So, look, with all this, category 4, the testing stuff, a little bit of online drama, I'm just going to open it up the floor and not even really ask a leading question. Just say, hey, what's your take on, kind of what happened over the weekend and, where you see things going and what some of the issues are.
We got to look at what the root cause of all of this is really poorly written regulations and rule sets for the growers and for the business people in the cannabis space. This is like kind of a test run of legalization, and part of me thinks that it was sloppily put out, knowing that it wasn't going to work too well. So the big fish could come in and buy up all the broken boats after the pirates and the black marketeers that were trying to become legal paved a road. The initialization of this road towards legalization is probably the hardest and biggest lift because no one really knows how to do this. So because of that, you have a whole melting pot of different interests from the black market to the legal market. Both are kind of sharing the same space when it comes to consumers. And with that, you have people that are representing legality and then representing organized crime, and then vice versa, playing both sides. So you'll have people like these social media pages that put out a lot of news, trying to keep things engaged and current, and then they'll monetize that through degrees of extortion, through telling stories, by synthesizing drama, right? So like there was no reason why that one page needed to get into the middle of all of this unless there was a monetary gain for that page to start undermining what you were trying to do, which has been tough. Like what you're trying to do is maintain a business, clean up the space, clean up the space while taking care of the consumer value and keeping everybody employed at a time when it's probably the hardest to do so. So you and I have we've developed a friendship. Like I've dropped some poetry of plants at your shop, but it was more like, hey, can I do this so I can learn? I don't know where I'm going to go with this, but it really, out of all of it, it's like you and I have become friends through the struggle, having conversations, watching each other have wins and watching each other make missteps and then talk through it all. So the last weekend was, was like a vomiting of of all of these issues all at once. But I think what it really showed is that we're still very fragmented. There's still a lot of corruption in the space. And I think it's important to take the high road. And we do need to start gatekeeping and moving some of the people out of the space that really just don't belong here because of their behavior. And that includes, putting levels of poison in the product, marketing and selling their products to young children and kids, right? Like that's not the deal. And then extorting people that are trying to do good things for the benefit of people that want to maintain that black market positioning and the lack of responsibility. They just want to make the money, not have any rules. But that comes at a cost, which we know about.
Right. So how do you, let's just say, let me start with this question. Where do you draw the line, right? So like, you got, just say, full-blown sociopaths. Then you got, people that are, maybe not the best people in the world, but, they're in the game and they're an important part of it. In so much as we are, there's some ambition here to start separating out, the industry. Like, and I've kicked these strategies around, I guess, even live on, I guess we're not technically live, but just as we're talking, how do you do that? Because it's something I wrestled with. Like, okay, we have this bad actor that's doing X, Y, or Z, and we could, let's just start with the vendor side. What do you think, as an approach is the best way to, let's say you come to the belief system that, like, okay, that was too far. What's the best move from there?
Well, with vendors that I've worked on that have been delinquent on payment, I think there has to be a track record of communication, giving them the chance to come back and to, settle the debts, make all this right. And I think if there's proof that they're avoiding that, if they're going out and spending money that should be going to their accounts receivables, and you can see that, you could bring that to their attention a few more times. But I think that if it's people's behavior makes it clear whether or not they're going to honor their agreements. And, if it's been 6 months or more, I think at that point you could be a little bit more aggressive. And being aggressive in today's world is challenging because we're the black sheep of all industry. Part of the reason why these scammers and extorters are able to prosper off cannabis accounts is because we want to be here and the people want us to be here, but the government does not. So we don't get the same rights. We don't get the same legal recourse. Plus, there's a stigma on taking legal recourse if someone's coming after your business. Like going and talk.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, like, I know
I didn't finish the first question.
Go ahead.
All right. So, I think what we want to do is if we can make a case and we can show that there's been clear negligence where people just don't care and they're not going to make good on it, and then they're spending, Peter's money to pay Paul, or they're out there, doing it to more and more people. I think we should put these people on blast as much as possible. All right, make it be known. So they're exiled. I mean, that's the only power we have. We can exile people out of our little spheres of commerce. And I think that should be the case for a lot of different things. I think pesticides, let's talk about pesticides just for 1 second. If you have over a dozen recalls, or let's say you have over 50 recalls, and there is proof, and there have been stories for the last 5 years of people getting sick, even passing away. Like in 2019 with one company, there was a young adult that passed away from using their product, which triggered the vape crisis, which triggered the whole stigma around vaping, right? And vaping in general is better than burning. So vaping is a healthier way of consuming nicotine, healthier way of consuming cannabis than burning it. Heat not burn. There's science behind this, right? But you had this incident happen in 2019, which then triggered this entire perception, which changed the trajectory of consumer value and consumer behavior. And it wasn't based accurately. And we could blame that on one fucking company, right? And now that company was able to stay in business for 5 more years and continue to get recalls and continue to have termite spray, bed bug spray, things that we don't even use on plants in their products. I think that that's clearly anybody that's participating in that behavior. And then when you talk to the labs and they're getting their lives threatened and they're getting their kids threatened by these bad actors, and then if you speak out against them, they come after you, which has happened to me. Right. So I think they don't belong here anymore.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to unpack. But
yeah.
So you speak out against them, right? So let's just say it's a big brand, right? Whatever. You can infer what you want. And you speak out against them, you're going to lose your Instagram page, right?
Right, I did.
Me too. Yeah. And twice in the last little bit.
And then you're going to get extorted to get it back, and then you're going to, if you're stupid, you'll pay the money, and then you get extorted again. So I just let it go. It's like fuck it. It's like
And so so then you speak out. You get I do think that it for whatever reason. And you see this happening actually in the real world, or the world outside of cannabis. when you speak out against a force like that, they're not up for a debate. Like, I would invite any of them in here to have an actual debate, but they don't want to do that because what their first move is to silence and take down your page. And as I'm going back and I'm seeing different pages that got taken down, even for a comment, I think people are getting taken down and disabled. And for those that don't understand the way the Instagram game works, there's plenty of people out there that are a little ring that could have your page disabled. That's it. The end. If they don't like what you're saying, not a community guidelines thing. That's also its own issue. But I'm talking about they don't like your, right to speak freely. So let's say, and then, again, there's a monetary value to this. And look, I think this is an important discussion to have too. Me and Nelson have always been good, super friendly. And even when we were in a very strong disagreement, there might have been one or two little dust-ups, but the debate is an interesting debate, and I think it's one worth having on camera, and for us, like, trying to walk that line of like, hey, well, we still got to run a business, and is it better just to move forward, or did too much happen? And there was one particular post, where I was giving out some stickers or whatever, which is super important issue to me. And I can't stress how important, like, I don't want all this drama for clean product to become controversial. This is not a controversial issue. Anybody who makes it a controversial issue, you got to ask yourself why, right? Let's talk a little bit about before the how. The post and your reaction, and
I was pissed.
And our off the line discussion, as well as our little online fun. There wasn't too much. There was a few that didn't get posted that he sent me that were actually. I might want to post one, but for now, why do it?
The private memes. I can't post my memes anymore. I get people want to.
So, what was your read on it? And look, I'll set it up a little bit. So at one point, my read was like, all right, let's not go back and relitigate. Let's just try to get everybody clean. And by the objective to get everybody clean is, let's create a wave, and the more people we get in the wave, we'll get everybody clean. I think there was a perception of the post, a lot of different ones. I think Nelson's was a more accurate one. Some people's pay to play. It definitely was not that. That was not my North Star on that. But what was your kind of take on it? I mean, we text each other, me a few times.
And just to set it up, we're not going to name the names of any of these companies or these accounts online. We're just going to say that this was one of the companies that was named in the LA Times article. This company also went back to having a lot of recalls and was the company that was noted on record of being responsible for that product that killed that 19-year-old that started the whole vape crisis. So I just want to make that note. That's right. In public record.
Yeah. The 19-year-old, I don't know, but I can say as a fact. I think
you don't have to say that. I'll say it.
Yeah. As a fact, I can say there was 60 or so ballpark recalls, all from 2023 over a several-month period.
Right. So I think, and also the context is that companies maybe they're in the top 5 in sales in the state, right?
I would say so.
Top 3
among vapes.
All right, among vapes.
The top 5, probably.
So they're a big revenue generator in retail right now, where revenue is tough, and vapes are still. Are they like the number one?
They're growing, and I think we have an advantage in vapes because I do think on some level people think like smoking a black market vape is crazy. Flower's super abundant on the black market,
and vapes are cheap,
and it's becoming convenient for the heavy smoker that likes to roll around all day with their vape.
Another note on that. Yeah. I think a lot of Latinos that don't want to get hassled by cops have moved from flower to vape because there's no smell.
Yeah, and like let's say you're somebody who'd you're just a high functioning all day cannabis user.
Or you just don't want to smell like weed.
Right, you don't want
a cop to pull you over and harass you and you smell like weed because that shit's still going on.
Or you're at the Dodger game and
you can be low key.
Yeah, you're good. Right? Yeah. Nobody even cares anymore.
Personally, I hate distillate vapes.
Right.
But that's because I like to smoke the flower. But that's just my own thing.
Right.
So I smell like weed.
Right.
But so that was the context of the video. This company who had a track record, but still had been able to survive and build sales, and also were partnered with an individual that was associated with another large company in the cannabis space that deals with marketing and distribution, and they have a lot of power. We're not naming names here. We're just, you guys, you do your own, figure it out. All right.
We're willing to platform anybody here that's going to come in and answer tough questions.
We're going to talk about the behavior, and we're going to talk about what we like to see change, but we're not going to we don't want to feed into the more of the throwing mud and all this silly stuff, because I know what will happen is it just escalates into something that will get close to violence. And then that devalues everything we're trying to do, because then people hyper focus on the drama and the violence, but not the point. And this is kind of what's happened in our world overall. And then the good things that could come out of a tough situation just get flushed down the toilet. So when I saw that video, the first thing I thought, because you've been outspoken in the space, you've gone after some other bad actors.
Well, I like the eye raise. But
right.
yes,
Yeah. You've been loud and brash and been ringing the bell harder than anybody else. Like when I go on my little tours to other markets and other states, people bring you up, and they not as a celebrity, so don't get a big head or anything, but more as someone that's been saying something that people have been too afraid to say, right? So when I saw you with the individual from that company that said that the reporting was all inaccurate, was all fraudulent, all this kinds of stuff, played it like it was some hit job on them, but there was enough evidence and there's enough firsthand account record to know that they were knowingly having these products out in the market that had the pesticides. It felt like your voice has power, and now you're co-signing their transition into the legal market, but almost like it was a PR move for them to discredit that story even further, because why would you were a part of that LA Times story, sideways, in the middle of it, all of it, and you've carried that torch further, which has been a great thing for the Cat 4 and getting clean cannabis. Might be a little too fast for people to figure out what to do, because now the testing rules have changed. I don't want to talk about that. But it just felt like a betrayal, right? So it hurt. And I was outside kicking rocks.
Like literally kicking rocks?
Oh, fuck yeah. I wanted to punch a hole in the wall. I was like, God damn it. Dude, no, there's a way of doing this, I think, where it wouldn't have validated their story. And I feel like it kind of validated their story. And then there's been an exemption from accountability or responsibility that's been in this space currently, which then creates a repeat of the pattern, because if people can profit off of bad behavior, they're not going to stop because it's easier. It's harder to develop the patterns to have good business practices. It's long-term better. Long-term, you will make more money. Long-term, you will be more successful. But most people in this industry are wired the way a broker or a duffel bag boy is, which is how much money can I make tonight? Not how much money can I make in the next 5 years. And it's also, there's just a general culture in America where businesses don't care about consumers. We can see that in any product. So it's not like the apple fell far off the tree from these companies and a number of other companies that are poisoning people. But we have to do better, because we are up against a Godzilla force that'll be coming soon to consolidate this market and basically take us all off the table. So if we are not doing better, then we absolutely have no chance with what's coming. And a few of us might sell our businesses and make a little money. 99% of us won't. So I care about us preserving all of the beautiful and awesome things that we've created in this culture and slowly pulling out all of the darkness, because at the end of the day, this is about a plant that is a benefit to people's lives when it's used properly, right? When it's grown properly and then provided to the customer in a clean and healthy way. There is a path for cannabis to be creating new standards for agriculture. I mean, the predatory insect world, which is where you release predatory insects that go out and eat the insects that are destroying your crops, instead of having to spray a chemistry, use predatory insects. Predatory insect world has exploded because of cannabis consumption and cannabis growth. Now it's moving into other sectors and other ag. Plus, in using predatory insects, we've been able to learn what the chemistry's long-term results on our crops and our soil actually are, because the people that run these beneficial insectaries have to study bugs more because that's their product. So we've learned things that could be a whole other podcast about what's happening with overuse of neonicotinoids and other types of products like glyphosate. So this is, and there's all these auxiliary things, kind of like how NASA developed all these programs, and then we got all these cool pieces of technology from that pursuit of trying to get up into space. The same thing is happening in cannabis. So we want more of that. We want to support more of that. And then we want to show up to the government agencies and be as flawless as we possibly can, because at that point we will get more support and we will truly be in the right to be able to have a seat at this table long term. Because the big businesses aren't going to be geared that way. The big businesses are going to be looking at how to make the most money And it's just not the same thing. It's like the same thing we've seen with tobacco companies, with plastic companies, with all these types of things. Like there's an opportunity to create an entire paradigm shift in this weird little niche that we're in. And we'll lose that if we don't make these efforts and start rewarding and elevating the people that are doing things right and taking the losses now to do things right, and giving the past. We can't give the past to the people who have been consistently doing things that are.
No, it was a tough call for me.
That was why I was angry.
No, and I actually think this is a good discussion to have. There's actually an article I'm going to post that's really open, frank article. I'm always open to take the criticism.
And my comments in there are brutal, and they were asked of me when I was pissed.
And what I said, when the article was written was, it was independent journalists, but write it like you're fucking trying to get both sides of the story. I'm never here to run away from any of my actions. If I make a mistake, I'll say I did. And I think in that particular case, the Cat 4 was so important to me because the real shit is we're kind of just right now as we're getting there, we're poisoning people on mass scale. And that to me was seen as a chip.
No, people are, not all of us.
Not all of us.
I want to make sure because those things, some of these things can be taken out
Well,
of
I'll say
context.
this, the pymetrozine, there's others.
Yeah.
The pymetrozine in there is showing up in parts per million, so the quicker we could fix that was the better, and then what hit the hierarchy was that. But I think, in hindsight and upon reflection and getting input from people whose opinions I value, and at the end of the day, real friends don't say like, oh yeah, bro, I co-signed that shit. They're like, no, right? Like right. You fucked that one up, dog. And then you got to reflect, be honest, and just keep moving along and see where it goes. But,
Can I interrupt real quick? At the same time, like I have a clear agenda. Right, and I have like a vision. That's my vision, but we're only gonna get through this if we're bringing all of our ideas of how this should pan out, and it's a collective work what this cannabis industry is, and I did think about all that you have to be responsible for and how unorthodox you are with what you do with Catalyst and everything else. You're not a typical CEO type guy.
I always say I was just the first guy that happened to be there.
Right.
I took the title. I was the first one to grab it.
I don't think I would be. I think it was the video, not necessarily doing the Cat 4. I think that's a great thing with that company, and I also understand that perhaps that company you need to have on the shelf to stay in business because of the sales that they generate. And then the real challenge is, well, how do we educate the consumer more? And does the consumer care? That's another thing that I think about. Like, does the consumer care that they're getting poisoned?
I think sometimes we overrate how much the consumer cares, and I wish that wasn't the case.
Until the lawsuits come.
Yeah. Well, look, we're going to do our best to educate them, and ultimately, upon more reflection, we no longer carry that brand. And I'm not here to beat up on them. I'm just here to, just speak my truth and say, hey, we did this, or I did that because this is what I thought. And I came to another conclusion later.
Can I just say one thing about that too? Because I'm gonna. So one of the things that was just where I feel like I'm living in an episode of Black Mirror is that I see a lot of products are branded for a younger audience, and at the same time, I do acknowledge that a lot of my generation never grew up. So we still are into things that we were into when we were kids. So there's this weird blending. But I thought it was really interesting that all this was going on, and then that company then went and created a new product that was branded like a cartoon character for a younger audience, and then they did this whole thing that was like an amusement park with robot animals or robot dinosaurs and all this kind of stuff. And I would think that there would be, like if there was really a desire to make things right, I think a lot would have shifted culturally for that company, and it became clear to me what they were really about, which made it removed any feeling of empathy for them whatsoever, where I'm like, no, these are not good people. Like the whole thing, like I look at the whole thing and I'm going to judge it, but I look at what it is and I look at like, this is who they're trying to hold on to. So they created a very expensive looking show at this event that was right out in the middle of all this stuff. And it was all psychologically wired for kids. And when I look at that, I get even angrier because it's like there's this whole, it might just be the paradigm we're in, where it's like, and this is being driven by the black market and all the Telegram stuff, and you can see it all, but the black market is pulling the rec world into its paradigm instead of us moving away from the black market, because the black market is able to continue to make money, whereas we're struggling, and so we start to sell back out to the spirit of the black market. And anybody that, I don't really take it too seriously as far as when people say black market for whatever, I just look at that as people that felt like they were excluded from the rec market because it was exclusionary, and they want to continue to do what they love, and I support that. But the reality of the black market is not that.
That's not what it's this idea.
Yeah.
Black market forever is not gardeners.
No, the black market is human trafficking. The black market is violence. The black market is substances that create dependency and turn people into slaves, essentially, to that substance and to the organizations that are behind that. And all of that is, it's like, if we sum it all up, it's the trafficking of our soul, essentially. So if the rec market starts to move more into that overall, I think we have a huge problem. And I think that if that happens in California and New York, which is what is happening right now, and the people that want that are a part of the culture but want to do it legally, don't start taking a more aggressive stand, separating themselves from people that are partaking into that type of marketing behavior, I think we're fucked. So, where I'm at with it, it's like, I love doing this. I've done a lot of different things in my life. I've had like 5 or 6 jobs, but this to me has been the most exciting. And this plant has brought a lot of benefit and a lot of cost to my life. But I look at it as the cornerstone of a transition out of the war on drugs and out of our understanding and relationship with substances, because the whole world, every human being, is run by some degree of substance. Right? And our relationship with that is what's driving unhealthy consumerism, unhealthy materialism. It's shattering our communities. Like I was in one of the things I work for a humble family-run company that's and I'm not going to even name them right now because I don't want them to get caught in this. But one of the things about Humboldt that I've learned, and I just think this is so important, is that everyone there is a community. The people that have survived, like everyone there, everyone has their faults. They're all a quirky bunch, but they all take care of each other. And there's something that we've lost in the more metropolitan areas where there's more activity, more business, more black market kind of sales and all that kind of stuff. We've kind of lost that, where everyone's just in it for themselves. And the further we go away from that, the easier it's going to be for us to fail, the easier is it going to be for us to hit rock bottom. And I don't know if we make it through this unless we start standing for something and standing together.
So, well, how do you draw the line? So there was probably 7 or 8 brands that popped for something.
Right.
Right. And let's just start with the DCC panel, because I think that's more fair. So there were 7 or 8 brands that popped for the DCC panel until people became aware that it was inefficient or insufficient, the testing. How do you draw the line between, okay, this guy is going to get excluded, and this guy had 4 hits, but we're going to let him stay included.
Right. This is a great question.
And we're going to clean him up. So because it gets real slippery, right? And then, okay, these guys were at the 1-yard line in corruption, but these guys were at the 3, but these guys were at the 5, these guys were all the way over at the 20. So, and I wrestle with this, but I don't know the right answer to this, but just just throwing it out there, how do we draw that line? Where do we draw that line? Or is it just one of those things when you see it, it's that old Supreme Court thing.
Right.
I don't know what indecency is, but when I see it, I know it.
Right. I don't think being hyper black and white about it is going to be helpful. And that's because I understand what's going on in the cultivation. And I understand the struggles that the farms are having to cultivate right now. And I think there are degrees of egregious offense, and then just like people, like let's say you're a farm, you buy plants from a nursery, maybe it's in Central Valley where there's a ton of drift. That could be a cause. Or in Central Valley, they also have super bugs that have developed a ton of resistance to anything that we can use. And so farms are on the verge of failure, and they might cheat once in a while, otherwise they go out of business. Now, I'm not saying that's okay, but I'm saying that then another farm could be buying those nursery plants, planting them, and not know that those plants have been treated with a chemistry that will cause them to fail. They grow that crop out, and then they get it sold, and then they're looked at as the bad guy. Right. Right. So if we're really quick with an assessment, like there should be a root cause investigation on what's going on, and then an understanding before anything's really made public. The situation with that one company was that they made themselves the lowest hanging fruit on being made an example of, because they immediately went out and took it personal and attacked everyone that was reporting on this. All right. And they turned it into a song and dance. They copied some of the things that you do. They started using psychological programming that they've seen work and tried to.
You're referring to the ink board?
I'm referring to the fucking whiteboard, dog.
That offended. By the way, the only thing that I shouldn't say the only thing. The thing that offended that was bad.
First one, you're like,
and the ink board. No, but go ahead.
Right. So, so when I look at that, because everything is about controlling people's perception of reality online, and if you're a hustler, you get pretty good at that, especially working like at an IQ range and below. All right, because there's some people who just they're not going to see that, and they're going to be more easily influenced by that kind of stuff. And also, people are excited to be part of a brand where someone's hanging out with celebrities or their favorite rapper. They feel like they're a part of that, which brings value to their life and their shitty job or whatever it is. They like get to go to the pop-up, get some product from this guy, feel that love, and they think it's genuine, right? And I don't, like, I look at the consumers, like that's how I was when I used to go to concerts as a kid, you know? There was some...
And just to clarify, because there is misconception about this, if anybody accuses any company on that level, they're going to file a defamation suit, in my opinion, to protect their brand. So that never happened.
Right.
And the other thing I'll say is it's not just the DCC that has samples. The LA Times is not dumb.
Oh.
They keep all the samples because they know when they run it through legal
right.
that there's defamation. I'm also aware of multiple other labs that have those same samples. So in case there's like some debate about it, on that part, I don't think there's any. Those samples still exist in, I don't want not vaults, but the metaphorical vaults, right?
Right. And a couple years ago, when I was on Tilt, thinking I was going to be the Batman of weed, which was the dumbest thing ever, I started working.
Not that dumb.
No, it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I started working on a documentary to kind of troll the corruption in the space. So I was going around and doing some filming, and I knew which people to ask which questions to. And then we were doing some research on it, and were able to pick apart some of this stuff. So when it came to light, I was like, oh, okay. And then I talked to the LA Times journalists about it. So I went and did, before I like really highlight a bad actor online, I try to do my best to due diligence on it. And
I think that's, as an internet personality, and we could get into another one that exists out there, the least you owe. The least you owe. You can put out your opinion.
Right.
I'm cool with that. The least you owe is the truth, right?
Right.
And, not one source, not innuendo, not rumor. The least you owe is that. So
right.
And then if you come to a conclusion on that and you're giving an opinion, like, hats off to anybody who wants to do that. Whatever. I might not like it. I don't care.
Yeah.
But like when it's just like all just completely made up facts.
Right.
Or, I think in this case, what's happened, and I think we've both paid the price with our pages. We'll see if we could fish them back out by the time this thing airs. But, then they silence. Like, they literally, what's going on right now is if you say something negative about certain people online, your page will be disabled because they have a bot farm of tweaking troll people that can do that, and it's not hard at all.
Yeah, it's like COVID.
Yeah. So you want to pop your 2 cents off, but you lose your whole fucking platform and doing it, right?
Well, I think the argument to be made on that is that the friends that I have in this space, the relationships I have in this space, I've done my best to make them real. So like when the page started getting popular for the memes and all of that, I went around and tried to meet as many people that follow me as I can in different states and understand what their struggles are and figure out how I can be in service to the industry in all these different states, because that's how I'm going to make my living. And then that's a win-win. And this isn't my first rodeo with having the page come down, with people coming after me. And now at the last year or whatever, I haven't even been able to do much with the page. So it hasn't had much value to me because anything that I would post would get flagged and then no one would see anything. So about a year ago, I just kind of said, who cares? You know, like, what is this? It's imaginary anyway.
It is a tool that could be used, and I think people who live in that world, like, live in it. No business, no employees, no real North Star. They're just living in that world. Then it's imaginary. But if you could use it as a tool,
but it's lost. I think in general, it's lost its luster. Like, everything has a moment,
right?
And I think that, like, there was a golden era for social media, and I think that all of that started to, like, leach out through the Trump presidency and then the Biden presidency and then COVID, because it just became this. It's exhausting. Like, you go online and you're just hit with so much energy all the time, and it will drive you insane. And I think that what has happened is people don't put as much importance on it as they do before. And also, there's a new generation of kids that are coming out that the way what they're looking at is changing. And I just don't think it has the same power. I think it's going to be bigger and continue to grow, and it'll always be in the background. And it's like we're living with the fucking TV talking in our ear all the time. And that future sucks. But that's, like, what's happening. And that TV is going to be tuned for you because the AI has read your whole personality and all of this and that, whatever. So I just don't think it's that important anymore. So I don't give a fuck. Like, what matters, like, the money I make is through working with people, helping their farms, helping their business, working with them directly. A lot of times they don't know that I have an Instagram account with X amount of followers because I'm just there to do a job. You know, and I'm trying to build a brand, try and figure out how to sell this product legally in this market. So I've let it go. I also acknowledge the fact that there was a period where I was addicted to it, and I have an addictive personality, and so I was hooked on it, and it was taking away from me connecting in real life with my wife, with my kids, with other people, and it still does. And, you know, this summer I put it down for like a month, and I felt so fucking good. So for me, like, take my account. You're doing me a favor. That doesn't mean you're going to shut me up, because everyone's walking around with the TV in their head. Right. And there's 1,000 different ways for me to get the message out. And I can do that on podcasts. I can do that on other things where I'm not, like, my identity isn't married to the Poetry of Plants Instagram.
Why is it that YouTube, like, we could say whatever we wanted for the most part. They have some limits. And we can't, whatever it is, doxing or being a
there's
ninja.
other challenges that YouTubers have.
No, I know, but they're not the same people that both probably took our Instagram pages down, that are both disabled at present while we're filming this, can't stop this episode.
Right. So Instagram has become a platform that's more of a portal to everything else. That's why it's been integral to a lot of people's businesses. People get a perception of whoever that person is, whatever that company is, and then there's links that will drive them everywhere else. I think Instagram is like the kind of the igniter for a lot of things and why it has so much value. And if you can take away that portal, then people will have a lot harder time finding you. The cool thing is that, like, people have supported what I've been doing, and like, more than, like, anything else, they want me to keep talking. So, you know, it's like I talk anyway. Just people started listening. Yeah. And that's cool. That's a blessing. And that's also a responsibility. But I'm not going to fucking sell that out because, like, you know, some turd with a fucking stupid hat on doesn't like the fact that I'm calling him out for poisoning kids. I'm not going to stop that.
Yeah, no, and I think Instagram's got to do something. Like, I don't know if it's intentional at this point or they're just living in the dark. And I think as we move forward, look, I could post some more fun stuff. I mean, it's a lot of material there. It's so easy.
I know, but
the bigger issue for me is let's just refocus, recenter. You know, I had my fun. You know, the messages, don't touch us up lightly. We're going to hit back. Okay, that's been done.
Right.
And there, you know, I have a few more things.
But the thing about it is, like, because I've done that too. And when you really hit someone where it hurts, what you realize is that, holy shit, the wound that person is carrying is much larger than I thought it was.
Well, and I don't say this in an arrogant way, not at all. Like, it's actually humbling, and
it doesn't feel good.
No, it
feels terrible.
The one individual that I'm, you know, kind of in a little thing with right now, I actually feel pity for her.
I do too.
Because, like, when you really key in on what her life is and what she's trying to be about, and
it's a life of lack.
It's lacking. And, like, in my life, I do the best I can to punch up, or at least punch at my same level. And even though, whatever, there's a big following there, so, like, at first it might seem like you're punching up and, you know, nobody's ever really hit her because for whatever reason.
No, people have swung, but it's just it's just such a
But I do feel like I'm beating up on
it's a hurt world. It's such a hurt world that's doing the swinging.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like I'm beating. And look, I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying I'm starting to feel like I'm beating up on a weak person,
Right.
that is just fronting off to be tough, and that is really has a sad life, right?
You don't really need to swing at those types of people because they hurt themselves, you know, and they're going to hurt themselves more than any of us could ever hurt them. And the best thing to do is to allow them to go through their process and not give them any more power or energy, because your energy gives them power. You are the battery, because without the exterior, they are only left with themselves and their internal wound that is eating them alive. And you have to hit rock bottom or you die. Like, it's one of the two. You will kill yourself from this process, or you will hit rock bottom and, you know, maybe have a moment with Jesus.
I'm hoping, no, like, I really sincerely, and I don't, again, this is not like I'm here and they're there. It's just like, all things being equal, I really hope they have that moment. And I'm starting to realize, like, hey, and then look, I know a lot of people in that crew, or at least a few.
Well, I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to do what you do to everybody else.
Yeah.
One of the things is that I think it's important to just say, you know, to those individuals, we're sorry you're going through this. Your behavior is unacceptable. I can't allow it in my space. All right. So we're not going to allow that anymore. But we're not going to engage in this bullshit at all with any of this anymore. But we are going to still stand for what we know is the right thing and the best path forward. And, you know, we'll figure out what the next course of actions, if you want to continue with that behavior, is. Like, we'll figure out a way of insulating what we're doing from that. Like, you go do your world. It's a dying world.
Well, I really like what you said is it's energy, right? And I haven't, put the text out or anything, but I have, like, I don't know, it's probably 100. Like, I mean, they are super entertaining. I think you've seen them, right? Oh man, I kind of.
Well, I still have the part of me where it's ridiculous and it's funny, and then you laugh and you're like, oh man.
Well, because you're kind of showing what it really is, and I think it's enough. Enough has been done, because I do think that point, like, oh, everybody thinks it's this, and then it's actually really interesting to meet, whatever you want to call the administrator of a page, and be like, oh, they're a little bit like their page, but they're more like this, or like, wow, that page makes them look like here, and they're really just, I did a Wizard of Oz meme. It actually is super appropriate. And again, I'm just sounding like I'm being fucked up, but I'm not actually trying to be fucked up. And these are like wounded people that have lost everything in their actual life.
Right.
They burned down all their real relationships. And look, I'm guilty of this too. Like, I knew this person and try to be friendly, and I knew enough about her past, and this is something I have to self-reflect on, to know, and look, somebody else told me the exact same fucking story that happened to me. Like, hey, I was a former drug addict. I felt bad for her. I try to be nice. She was always on tilt, and I try to pick her up. Same thing I try to do, right? Had her on here. She want to come on. Hey, also, she put them up. I didn't even think they were. I was like, that's just me being nice. Like, hey, monetize this in a better way. Launch your brand. Do something positive, right? You say you want to clean up the industry, and now because of money or whatever, you're playing for Team Poison, but I do think there's a
totally
right. Like,
well, that's been the whole MO, is that she'll get in the middle of drama, stir the pot a little bit, and then will prey on the party that is the most vulnerable and weakest, and get money from them to help support their cause. And she'll flip-flop depending upon who's going to pay her.
But what's the cause? Like, and then the thing for me...
Well, the cause for them was to save their brand,
right,
and then to change the narrative. The cause is always about controlling perception, right? Because the perception is what drives sales. And so deception is what controls perception, and that's what drives sales. So and also the fact that she represents so many black market brands and does the whole Telegram thing, where, like, she'll talk about how she wants to be supporting the legal market, but at the same time be promoting and taking money from black market brands to sell their product. I mean, I don't think that's snitching.
She called that. Well, she called that stripper money. And
whatever.
Like, that's
whatever it is. The fact that the company that's having all these problems went to her to get the help, and made that deal with her to get the help, however it was.
Nobody else would have done it.
Right, but, well, maybe not. But again,
you wouldn't have done it. Beard Bros wouldn't have done it.
It makes me,
I can run through them, right?
It makes me think that they're controlling the black market perception is more important, because that's where most of their money's coming from anyway, even though they're a licensed brand.
Right. By the way,
I don't know that.
I want to take
but
up this.
think that.
I want to take up this snitchy thing a little bit. Like, to me, there's a difference between you got caught and now you're snitching on people above you to reduce your sentence. That's I think its own thing.
Yeah.
And then like
you were complicit with a group of people.
And then you snitched.
And then you got in trouble. And then you snitched on
right.
everyone
And then
else.
there's like, hey, it's not your business. Don't snitch, right? But then there's like, I think this because of the weed culture being just like, I get it. It's an outlaw culture. But at some point, like, is poisoning people snitching? I don't think so. I think that's
or calling out people that are poisoning people is not snitching. That's
or is people that are extorting snitching? No, it's just.
I just don't. I don't like. That's just a tool. It's the same tool that.
It's a gaslighting tool.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing as virtue signaling.
Right.
Right. It's like the black market version of virtue signaling, and it's like, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah, and look, as I go through this journey,
fuck you. It's like
and
no.
I see the attraction to like, whether it be a big brand or somebody with a big page, and you're running a business. And look, you got to feed people, so you're pragmatic or Machiavellian, not in the worst sense of the term. You just do it, right? And you're like, oh yeah, it's a little crazy or they're a little off, but I'm going to deal with it because in the end, I'm trying to move over here, and then
right.
The scorpion is a scorpion. Let me flip on this because I think this is.
I want to go back to something.
Okay, do it.
All right, because the discernment on like all the other brands that had this, because this is an important thing. Because all the other brands that got reported on in this LA Times thing, I think there's like one other brand that said something about it, and the rest probably internally had the conversation, started working with retailers, and started figuring out how this would never happen again. Right? That was kind of the read I got when I did.
I think that's a fair read.
That's a fair read. And it's like, oh my God, we don't want to bring more visibility to this. We just want to fix it and make sure we never have this. Maybe they knew about it, maybe they didn't, right? The people that were the loudest, like, oh my God, fake news, it's a lie. It's like, okay, dude, why are you even talking about this? Like, that's just a bad move right now. Like, clean up your act, move on. Right? That would be the strategic thing if you were in a business and something like that happened. And pray to God there wasn't a class action lawsuit 10 years later.
I think there's going to be class act.
Well, regardless of whatever it is. The other. So how do we? Where's the line that you were talking about before? Because I think that's an important thing. Yeah. I think that if a brand is honest and they're like, yeah, I think this is a problem, we need to fix it, we help them out any way we can. Right? Because the industry is a mess and everyone needs as much help as they can. And then at that point, it's like there's no more passes. Like, don't let this. You've got to make sure your QC's in check where this never happens again.
Right? Yeah, I mean, look, it's a huge struggle for me. I struggle with it all the time, and I'm guilty also. Like, and I could at least self-reflect and see it. Of you get blinded by the, hey, I'm fucking barely surviving. I got to feed all these people. And you might, like, whereas in your personal life, you'd be like, nah, I don't want to go to dinner with you.
Right.
You might be somewhat friendly. I do think, back to the mudslinging thing, that's super important that I want to make this point, and I think we're both, in lockstep on this, is I don't want the drama of the brand and the reposting and the protection of that and to become the bigger story than the Cat 4, and call it what you want, clean product movement. Cat 4 was just an easy term that like I used that I thought I could get into the lexicon, so we were talking about something different.
Now it's Cat 5. I started Cat 5.
Yeah, Cat 5. People are making jokes, and those are kind of funny. I'm laughing at the memes. But so what we have done, and we'll see exactly which way it goes. I think I'm going to do the best I can to hand this off to a nonprofit and promote it, because there's no real profit in the typical sense, other than I could sleep at night knowing we're not poisoning people. Standardizing that, we're almost there. And then I want to get into like why the farmer's input's important and how you weigh commerce, small farms versus like maybe a little bit of exposure of something that's not the worst, right? But I think having it standardized so it's clearly defined, we're almost there. That's going to be done. That will be important. And then also pushing it off to a posse of people so it's not just my issue, right? Like, I really don't want to run with this issue. And look, I'm, plenty guilty on occasion of grandstanding. This is not one of those things. I'm trying to, in so much as I'm hyping it to clean it up. But we've had a lot of discussions. Is you have labs, scientists, you have brands that are already there, but those brands might have the luxury of buying out all the real estate around them, so they get rid of drift, right? And then you have small farmers and all this. So as standardization, I think the state needs and whether DCC did whatever they do, they do. But as far as like what Cat 4 is going to be, or maybe it ends up taking on another name that might get announced later, it needs to be standardized, right? And everybody needs to agree. It can't just be de facto this lab or that lab. And it's been great. 3 labs have changed their tests already. There's already wider screening going on. Everybody's working on it. My belief is every brand does it. It's a process because there's a lot of pymetrozine in the motherfucking, and it's all coming down. Right now, the good thing is the legal market only needs a little.
Do you know why there's so much pymetrozine in the market?
Well, so that was going to be the question, which is, how do you protect consumers' health enough, and where it's very difficult to farm, and you're way more intelligent on this than me, and this is why I love getting the input for the lab guy, to the farmer, to the manufacturer, et cetera, all these opinions, even the retailer are important. How do you make it so that, like, okay, obviously application is a sin, like terrible, right? You should
maybe. I'm going to say this, maybe.
Well,
right now the label is the law. So if the crop's not on the label, then you're not allowed to use it. So we've been
pymetrozine is a felony to apply in the state. Period.
Oh, in the state of California?
Yes, period,
okay.
the end.
So it's completely banned in California.
Yeah, so when you're using
then why is it sold into California by major ag distributors to anybody that wants to buy it?
Because chemical companies want to make money. But
they shouldn't be able to sell it.
I agree. So from somebody who's super smart.
Good question.
That is actually a fucking damn
Why
good
is it being
question.
sold into the state? Because the distributors know.
But maybe they're getting it, I don't know if they're buying it direct. I think you just buy it Endeavor online. What it is, it's Endeavor, which is half.
Well, there's a few products.
Right, and you could just buy it.
Yeah.
But my understanding, and this is from somebody's opinion that I'm very reliable, it's a felony to apply, period. So just because the DCC doesn't test for it, somehow.
Right, but if I'm in Texas, I can't go on the Catalyst website and order weed to my state, and that's a regulated substance.
Right.
Right, and so that I can't get that shipped to me.
That is a great question. How the fuck? I mean, other than the chemical company lobbies own everybody probably, because I don't think. I think people are just going out and buying it. I don't think.
No.
They're not like.
They're big ag distributors that are selling it into the state.
Yeah, but they're not. There should be. They shouldn't be able. We have metric. We can't sell.
Maybe it's one of these things where it's like THCA, right? You can sell it and it's considered hemp, but you can't smoke it because once you smoke it, it's actually an illegal substance.
It actually doesn't make sense. It should, we got all this bullshit, whatever. Metric, if it worked, would probably be a good thing. Doesn't work at all. But just for the sake of argument, let's just say it did work. If you sell Endeavor, you should have to sell it to a farm with a label so that if somebody comes out to your farm, I'm not talking weed farm. So I think it's mostly used in onions. I'm not 100% sure. And it's, you can eat it, and so whatever. It's massive studies have been done on that. People are reporting it to the ag commissioners in that county. The end. That's okay. So there should only be, and this is a really good question I never ever fucking pondered, right? How is it possible? The only way that it should be getting to people is they're going through a plug that has an onion farm or something.
No.
Right?
Yeah,
but that's not happening. They're just buying it.
There's only a few things there's a handful of things that you cannot buy because it cannot be distributed in the entire United States. It might come down to another poorly written California regulation because we know there's a lot of those.
Well, look, they write them poorly. Why? Who's putting them in the fucking office? The money.
Well, they write them poorly so they're easy to circumnavigate, which is why the cannabis laws are so fucking broken here.
Well, the weird thing is Illinois got it down as an iron trap. I was just, I'm actually probably going to fly out there next week. Liters of distillate in Illinois are going for $7,000. So how are they keeping it?
Well, Illinois has a gate kept market, so there's only a specific amount of cultivators in Illinois, and then they released a ton of microgrow licenses, and then made it impossible for people to go through the process because they're protecting the larger MSOs. But those companies haven't been that successful. So there's some smaller companies pop up. I'm working with one of them. They're a great company.
I'm actually on my way to look at one probably next week. It just seems like a crazy idea.
Legacy.
Yeah, but if it was California and it was that limited, there wouldn't be 7,000 liters. We would have figured out, for better or for worse, how to invert them, how to make them, and get the price down to 2,000. But they don't use metric. They use some other track and trace.
I think they use BioTrack. And then also in Illinois, everything is monitored. They have access to everyone's cameras at any time. I have to call and get state permission to go visit the grow where my flower is getting grown. I have to do a ton of things. There's just a ton of steps that And that was the case that's in the case in so many states. And those markets have been able to still, they've had their ups and downs, but they've still been able to create a quality product for the consumer. And it's not oversaturated.
$70 mids, but yeah.
No, it's lower. I mean, I in Illinois,
to be fair, I haven't been out there.
In Illinois, I'm selling like a $15 to $24 eighth. That's like of high quality because I want people in Illinois, and I'm not making any money off of that. It's just like, let's promote the brand and let's get people something that's awesome for a low cost because everyone's hurting. And I'm playing around with THC percentages, trying to change consumer behavior on THC.
I actually think, and we could talk about that one, but
Yep.
I think we're winning that argument slowly, right?
But back, I mean, we're going to,
But
this is like our phone calls.
But let me ask you this, though. How the fuck, this is a great question I want to go back to.
Yeah.
How the fuck, if it's a felony, assuming that's correct.
Well, it must be a felony to apply, but not a felony to sell. So that should be something that should be updated, right?
I mean, that's like saying so you could sell fentanyl. But we should be like, if you're a pharmaceutical company,
You can sell fentanyl.
You can sell fentanyl, or how about this? You could sell Vicodin without a prescription.
Right.
Right.
So if they took
That's
away,
what it's like.
If you took away easiest way to solve that is to take away people's access to making it harder to buy.
Make it a little harder.
They could still go down and go to Mexico and get it, but
Right.
that's what happened. Like there was one farm I worked for in the big ag side, and they were bringing organophosphates up from Mexico. I found out about this after the inspector showed up, and they were bitching about getting shut down at one of their farms in New Mexico, and I was like, wait a minute, what were you guys doing?
So like without being, and look, I don't think anybody knows the exact harm of smoking.
But testing the product is going to tell us, and then that's going to drive more change than anything else, because then you won't have a lot harder time selling your products in the legal market, and then it's going to be about education and controlling the narrative about what's going on in the black market and how a lot of the products that are polluted are going into the black market, and teaching our kids that, like, hey, like at some point you're gonna be old enough to consume cannabis, but let me explain to you what you're gonna have access to right now and why you don't want to consume it, because it's not just cannabis.
That's the conversation I have with my kids.
It's that and a gas chamber.
Yeah.
You don't want that. You
do not. And then
you don't want that.
So,
these are endocrine disruptors. These are neurotoxins. The chemical industry that produces pesticides, the roots of the founding of those companies are and chemical warfare.
Yeah, it's Agent Orange.
Yeah, for chemical warfare and the Holocaust. That's where those companies started to develop these chemistry. And when they were like, oh God, we can't apply these to people anymore. Right.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
We can modify them and apply them to insects. And so that's what there's a whole bigger conundrum here that hopefully cannabis, like this could all end up being an incredible thing for the world if this issue in cannabis gets more visibility and people start thinking more about all the chemistry is used on our food, and maybe our model of farming is not right. Maybe our model of farming is destined to fail. It's destined to that, or we're just going to be eating stuff that's cooked up in some lab.
I mean, it's definitely not right for humanity, but if the objective is just to keep people sick and then sell them drugs that they wouldn't need if they just ate healthy, and it's only profit driven, then maybe it is. So like there's a debate going on a little bit amongst people that really are well intentioned that want to get clean product to the market. So 0.5 has been one suggestion for pymetrozine, which is 50 parts per billion. 0.2, which is 20 parts per billion, has been another level. What do you think? You know way more. You're way more tapped in. In fact, you're probably more tapped into anybody in this group. I know guys trying to get it down, and I had a call the other day. 0.7, I'm like, bro, I'm not breaking the Cat 4 now, right?
The only way to know what the acceptable limit would be to simulate a drift. You do an experiment where you simulate the drift, right? And then you grow the plant out fully, and you figure that out. There's another argument to be made that people might think is like flip-flopping on the issue, but we don't know how much of that in any product is unsafe for us.
No, nobody knows.
We don't know. And so part of what we're doing is, even though there's without the chemical industry right now in our current system, we would be not doing well when it comes to food supply. The chemical industry, even though it was developed for war, has created to this surplus of food. that's a benefit. So we can't discredit that. We just have to look at it objectively. And then, I'm emotional. I get emotional and take things personal because I've had people in my family that have been horribly impacted by pesticide exposure. My mom passed away from a very unique type of cancer that was more than likely directly resulted of her exposure to an organophosphate. I've had another family member that was exposed at the same time with my mom, and he had the same cancer. So, my mom was worked with Cesar Chavez on the grape boycott because the migrant workers were getting sprayed with the same pesticide that were picking the grapes, and they were getting the same rare cancer. And so she worked with Cesar Chavez in the mid to late 80s on the boycott ban. So this is in my fucking blood, like to be like this. Like I grew up around this, and I also saw the cost. I spent my childhood with Make-A-Wish kids and a cancer ward. I understand fully down to the depths of my heart, to the point where it's impacted and changed the trajectory of my life, where it made it harder for me to see that and then to go to school. Because you can't process that as like an 8 or 9 year old the same way. My mom was on Geraldo.
I do think people that are selling the poison are so detached from that reality.
They don't know.
They know maybe, but they don't know. And I've never had to deal with that in my personal life.
They might not have the capacity to feel that.
And I think, I think that's it. There's something to that, which is sad. And I don't think if you're being
that just means that they shouldn't be in a position of of power to be distributing anything that should have chemicals in it, because they don't have the capacity to know what it feels like to poison. What the back end of, like, when you're someone that has been have family that's been poisoned, right? Like, you don't know what that feels like.
Right. And even in my mind, without having dealt with that personally, the status quo just wasn't okay. And to me, and I've used this example, is like we're in a tobacco moment and don't know it if we don't change.
Right.
Hopefully we create this alternative universe with less people standing over their loved ones that have cancer. Like, I'm taking it that seriously. And, this particular person didn't think it was a big deal, actually laughed when I said that. And I'm being like dead fucking serious, not dramatic, nothing. I think that's what we're...
well, I call that evil.
Yeah,
I call that evil.
It's bad. Evil's a strong statement, but
I call it evil.
It definitely is.
It's fucking demonic.
But I do think
in my book,
I do think there's a move here that we're gonna get to it, and I've said this before. This might end up being as far as family, of course, all this is super important, but as impactful on the world, something, or just California, our little kind of big area, that will do more good.
I agree.
That I might never know about.
Right.
Like if a bud tender's in trouble and never refused to request, and I need my car fixed up, I get to know that stuff. The hope is this: I'll never know. I'll just hey, we had our little 2 cents in it, and then when we and you were going back and forth, I was like, yo, bitch, what did anybody else do, right? And to me, there's basically 3 decisions, and I think I've got to at least part way to number 1. It was 3 status quo. That was not good. So and that's where, I think it's not judgment. Status quo, not saying anything. Not everybody lives the same way, brash or whatever you want to call it. So it's not a judgment, but that's what's going to be the thing. Status quo until maybe DCC. Now I think they're going to move because they're embarrassed.
I know they are.
Yeah, that's what we're
I already
all
know.
hearing, yeah.
I have friends that have gotten in. The DCC's come in and done quiet inspections to see if any of the products that have been named in that LA Times article and things that you've been, I mean, people are paying attention, and we're catching it before they do, which is the best thing. We want to self-regulate ourselves. I mean, that's what Gavin Newsom said, right? So Gavin Newsom came out and said that the cannabis industry has done a terrible job self-regulating themselves, and this is why we've got all these hemp THCA things going on. And he says that we need to do a better job regulating ourselves, all right? But what Gavin Newsom doesn't understand is that when we try and regulate ourselves, our lives and our families get threatened.
Yeah.
All right.
And we get kicked out.
And Gavin Newsom doesn't give a fuck about our families, because if we could self-regulate ourselves and we actually had authority that was bigger than just social media influencing, if we could be able to actually enforce all of this stuff in a real way so we could clean this up and have this be a healthy industry, we would have the support of the government. But that's not what's happening is the government is just applying their thumb on us even fucking more and then saying, you should have done a better job.
Well, and I think they don't really respond to anything other than embarrassment, right? So, but back to the 3 levels. Shame. No, and look.
So let's keep shaming them.
Yeah,
let's shame them out of fucking office.
Yeah, as much as like, we want to just get the issue done.
And let's start finding politicians that are listening that want to help us, like Chris Coloom, shout out.
Chris Coloom's going to be on here. I still got him a call back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. If you're
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
By the way, that's all fucking bullshit.
It's all bullshit. If you're willing to listen and you have some ideas and a plan, and you're able to take what you hear from the business people and citizens of your area, and you want to then apply that, like, you got it. Just don't sell out.
Yeah, but back to the 3 levels, I think. So, and I told a little bit of this story before, but I went in to test just to make sure it was clean. And then, I freaked out like, oh shit, what if these guys are dirty? And then when we did the test, everybody was like, that's not a real test. It's only 66. Then I got gamed up. I threw myself into it and got gamed up and realized like, wow, there's a lot of other stuff popping. Okay, so now you're saddled with this information as a CEO, which is holy fucking shit. People at mass scale are smoking, pymetrozine and other chemicals. Like, we need to do something about this. So status quo probably would have been the way forward. That's most path that people took, and it's not a judgment. It's the easiest path to take, head down, figure out how to highlight what you're doing, right? And then path 2 was, let's not relitigate the past. Let's give everybody a pass. And that's where I got first.
That was the only part I wasn't okay with.
But I still think 2 was substantially better than 3.
I think that was your best move in the position that you're in.
I'm not saying it was my best move.
No. I mean, what do you? I get it. I'm not responsible for like hundreds of jobs and keeping stores open and dealing with all the nonsense. I think that you shouldn't relitigate it. If everyone's trying to make goodwill and do this and that, but if you're at the same time undermining it and playing both sides, like, fuck you.
But then at some point you get to
that's
step,
what I'm
you
saying.
Get to step 1 and you're like, not only am I going to do step 2, so status quo dead. That was like, in my mind, dead. We're going to figure out how to resolve this. And I like the sticker thing. Of course, we're going to standardize it. Of course, there's going to be handed off to a nonprofit. I also think it's not only going to be standardized throughout the state, it's a nationwide movement. I got motherfuckers hit me up from, not motherfuckers, just other retailers, from New York, from fucking Illinois, from everywhere.
No, it affected how people, distributors... We're using Cat. Well, this was the problem.
The BM is beating on people that don't have Cat 4.
Right. And then other distros were like, "Oh, it's not Cat 4. I'll pay you $200 less." And then the farms are calling me. It's like, "Fuck Elliot. Where do I get Cat 4 testing?" I had just distros companies calling me. Who does the Cat 4 testing? I'm like, you do. It's not. How do we figure out what Elliot's doing? I'm like, it's not him. It's just you go to the lab and you say you want all this stuff tested.
You want a real test. So then I think the final step that I did get to, and look, I don't want to focus on this one brand, and I just think it needed to be done. I'm going to
focus on them until they're out of business.
I know your take on it, and look, if I'm being real, you probably had a substantial amount of influence on the decision. There's always a lot of factors that you take into place. Other people that I respect, disappointed is not one I'm used to. Like and I heard it a few times.
That's because you're addicted to social media.
No, I'm not. No, this was. These are just text messages, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I talked to you. I was like, bro.
No, there was another person who I really respected the work he's doing, and I'm really just following.
No, but we're brothers for life.
Yeah,
and we're I'm gonna disappoint you. You're gonna disappoint me. But that's the point. Like the thing with social media, it gets you into this blacklist thing, right? Where like someone did something wrong, fuck them, and everyone gangs against it, and it's all tribal. But the reality is, like in a real relationship, like we all miss the mark. I've missed the mark thousands of times, and I got people in my life who are like, dude, you're out of line. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
But that's what you need.
And I got to correct that. And that's how you have a real relationship. That's how like real men have healthy relationships with each other. Hey, I don't agree with that, and this is why. Or this hurt me, and this is why.
And then I think it's just an individual. You have.
But the decision, we talked through it, but it was the. However
there was
many
more.
There was like 50 more fucking recalls, and then it's like, okay, Nelson might have a point.
And
here.
I'm not gonna get into
because it's egregious.
I'm not gonna get into every new amount of information.
Like there's no shadow of a doubt at that point where things are in alignment, and then you have to make a decision that is going to hurt in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to be better. And then the people the support of the people that want to see the right thing have to come up from that then.
At some point,
we can't be afraid to support people doing the right thing because we're worried about one, chubby turd.
Oh man. So, but by the time I got there, right? So when we were going back and forth, I was like, yeah, must be nice. My feedback was somebody actually, whatever it was, the 2 pills, like somebody actually tried to clean it up, and somebody trolling on the internet, right? Which is, and it's again, not a. I know you've got all sorts of fucking irons in the fire, but it is a different perspective doing that. But I do think at the end of the day, you got to stand on business, stand on something, right? And it came, and then going back to the Cat 4 thing, that's so, if that was the North Star, beyond, trying to just ethically weed somebody out that you think deserves to, I believe that it was starting to undermine that as well. And so that
100%. And that's what they've been trying to do. That's their agenda now, because when you took the extreme measure, they showed their fucking hand. Right. So when you no longer were, when you drew a line, when you draw a line, it's like the way that you cast out a demon, you call it by its name. That's how you cast out a demon. When you don't call it by its name, it can exist within you. Like, that's a metaphor. It's the same for everything. You call something out for what it is, and the response is they expose themselves for who they really are. And then there's no doubt. And they do it to themselves.
Well, by the way,
undermining of, like, Cat 4, they're basically trying to turn it into something that people don't even know what it is anymore. They're going to turn it into a meme or a joke.
And that's why I'm in a hurry.
So,
I'm in a hurry to get it standardized, make it clear what it is. And, again, because in my mind,
the point of this emergency podcast.
Yeah. It's brought to you as an emergency, health emergency. No, but like in my mind, it's as soon as I found out, like I had this like, holy fucking shit, it's been an emergency. So the stopgap is like, okay, we're doing this, but let it play out. It's going to get standardized. Right. And I actually think other states are going to pick up on it. Some have more thorough testing, but as maybe we move into other states. Or maybe there's guys, I'm like, hey, I'm standardizing it. I'll send it to you. I actually have a document in my inbox today that is been synthesized. And look, I'm not smart enough to know, other than I kind of know from the brand perspective what they could maybe get it to, and like without busting up all the commerce overnight, and I even suggested maybe to this posse, like, hey, maybe make it a little less strict, year 1 and more strict year 2. We'll see how we do it. But either way, I think the standardization and the official naming of it and having a document out front, which is coming soon, then it's like, this is what it is. And I think even the operators, some of them didn't know. They thought it was all non-detect on the 66. I'm like, no.
Well, that's it. We have to give space for people to move past the ignorance around things. And ignorance is not a bad word. It just means you don't know. It just means that, like,
I was ignorant as fuck.
Well, that's the thing. Like, for me, because I understand a bit more of it, because this has been my world for the last 15 years on the
you're way
cultivation
ahead
side,
of the curve. Yeah.
Is that, like, I understand it a little bit more, and I also understand where the
farmer's coming from.
Right, where the farmer's coming from. And my argument as a farmer is that there should be testing to know what an acceptable limit for some of these things are, so we don't lose these tools while we figure out how to deal with a rapidly evolving insect that's going to decimate our crops with the tools that are available. So that's the other part of all this, is like, I empathize heavy with the farmers.
No, and I think this is a super important product.
Those products, that wasn't like, this sounds crazy, but there's probably a responsible way to apply these products to get rid of these bugs, and that to be labeled the proper way with the right research, but we don't have the right research because it's still federally illegal. So we're kind of stuck here. When you look at the testing results, though, it's clear that those motherfuckers were applying those chemicals like till the day of harvest.
No, it's not nursery shit.
It wasn't like they applied it on a mom, took a cut from it, did the mom again, took a cut from it, and then made their plants. No, those guys are spraying it, 2 days before it was coming down. And because that's what those test results show you. So that's insane. That's just complete disregard. And whoever the farm was, I mean, I guess they don't farm, whatever. These companies don't farm, they're buying it. But they should know who they're buying it from.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a retailer, I have a fucking responsibility.
Right, and you don't know.
Yeah. Well,
there's no, because the way...
I just assumed, and I've been in this long enough, so if I didn't know, like, I have a lot of space.
No, but because metrics so broken, so much of all of it is moved around, in and out and in and out and in, that you don't really know where that product was.
So the only
produced
truth I
from.
say is the shelf. And why?
Right.
So with this new thing we're working on, and look, it's a lot to test your own self. You got to keep in mind, we got to run a business too, but this is an important issue. 3 tests a month for every group that opts in, right? Off the shelf. The only truth is the shelf.
So it's 3 tests a month. Who pays for that?
So, well, everybody who joins the group will pay some money, right? So the nonprofit will raise money, right?
Okay.
And if you opt in as a brand, right? Look, obviously, I think there's really
I think there should be a way where the farms don't have to pay for the testing.
Well,
I think the testing should be covered by taxes.
Well, in a perfect world, but look, I think
I'm just saying that because let me explain to you why. Testing is a huge cost. Margin, like if you're doing small batch drops and you want to do some fun stuff in the market and develop new strains, you would want to be able to test. You know, like how long did it take for me to sell?
But as membership in this and it's still being developed, the bigger brands have to pay more than the littler brands, and then the test itself.
Because it's a big burden on the little brands, and the price point right now is at its all-time low.
Right.
So all the stuff we're talking about is great, but if the burden goes back to the farm,
that's why it's super hard. Yeah.
These farms are not going to be able, like that testing number is their margin now. That is their profit.
Right.
So
well, I'll say this: large batches.
So this is all I ask.
It's not a huge cost.
This is all I ask. While all this stuff is figuring out, you've got to fucking include the farmers in the conversation.
I agree.
So we understand
you brought that to my attention because
understand the financial impact, and then we need to come back and support them.
Right.
All right. Which I have ideas for. Right. And then we need to create a network for people to have an easier time growing clean cannabis. There needs to be nursery providers that where their nursery stock is tested for these things, so they know that they're getting a clean plant.
I was talking to a gentleman today who does tissue culture. Linked him up with Josh.
The guy.
I don't know if he wants me to put it out there yet.
All right.
But
good for him.
Yeah.
I know who you are.
Yeah. But I was actually thinking, that's a good solution to the clone issue.
It is.
It doesn't help the nurseries, but guess what it does? It brings it into a lab-like setting,
right?
So that now the farmer doesn't have to worry about the original start.
Well, we don't get.
He's testing literally today. That's the other thing.
Well, hold on. Let me say one thing. Yeah. Let me say one thing. If Gavin Newsom wants the cannabis industry to self-regulate, right, then we need some of the things agriculture has, right? Like subsidies. Like, there's no margin anymore for us to pay.
We have reverse subsidies.
We have reverse subsidies. So for this,
by the way, take away the license.
And I'm hoping that people, the DCC, are watching this because they watch you like a hawk. So look, you're going to kill everything with this unless we figure out a way of supporting the ground floor and the farmers to do all of this the right way. Then they would willingly do it.
So our stores that smack pay $96K. That's the top fee, and then they're all the way on up.
96 grand
a year just for the license, not tax. I pay.
You're not talking about what you're charging the brands. You're talking about
what I just pay to the state just so I can hold the license.
Okay, got it.
96,000.
96 grand.
So
for one license.
For one license. So
how many licenses you got?
Well, that's like they're tiered, right? So
it's like 2.8 million.
No, because some of them only pay 57. Some you pay.
Think you might be their best customer. They should be treating you better.
I fucking agree. You know, I told someone the other day. I said for my actual like wealth level, and again, I'm not complaining about where I am. I pay the most taxes. I'm confident of anybody, maybe in the country. This is a bold statement, a little off topic. For the level of wealth that I have, because there's like 50 million going out, and like whatever, I live decent, but I have never pulled any money out of this company. I'm not making any money. Like somebody, if you're paying it, and this is off the top, not IRS shit, so you should be making 150, 200 million, right? But they have 135 million in licensing fees, which includes all mine.
How much?
135 million. The Metric got a big hit of it, and then
how much does Metric get?
They're I think 28 million.
Wait, what? Metric, it's
5 years. They just signed a 5-year no bid contract. 90% fail. 28 million a year.
I want something. I want a contract with the state.
Your lobbyist.
Wait, I want to build something that's broken and then sell it for 28 million. Yeah. That sounds so.
Well,
good.
We're looking at that actually. I can't. How many lawsuits can you file to make?
They get it. They got it. So it's 28 million every year for 5 years.
5 years, no bid contract. They just got it. Right. That's called having good lobbyists. Then on top of that, the DCC. It's
called an oligarchy, but okay.
Yeah, the DCC. Yeah, of course. Yeah. The DCC is 15 million into the 5 million for commercial, 10 or 12 million into a lab, and they still couldn't catch it, and the labs still aren't done.
Right.
Meanwhile, a small group of people.
Did anybody follow up with the DCC lady that that outed that there was fentanyl in products and she sued?
I think there's
Do
some
we know-
more. I think there's some more big stories coming
right, cool.
down. I'm hearing the LA Times is going to got another big fuck you piece coming. DCC has 135 million in licensing fees, and a little crew, right? Like maybe I'm $100,000 into this. God bless Josh. He's probably $1 million into this, and a few other people. Let's say there's been about $2 million spent, right? We have done more. Right, and it's not a brag; it's just a fact.
Than all of them
That
since
all of them
2016.
Yeah, all of them put together in 90. This came to my attention, whenever the LA Times, whatever that 4 months ago, and we have made more progress, and we'll punch this thing in for 6 points before the year's over. And the DCC has no incentive. Once you understand that they're a business, and I keep trying to take it a little easier on them, but whatever, it is what it is. So they get 135 million. Boom. Their boys get not the DCC rank and file, the government's boys that have licensee. 90% fail. It'd be like selling mules with one leg in the Civil War for whatever $1,000, whatever money was back then. It's just crazy. And then they have all this other money for the bureaucracy that doesn't actually do anything. But if they start making testing stricter, guess what? Maybe a few of the farms that are paying those licensing fees go away. According to our research, and I might actually do a post on this tomorrow. It's been sitting on my inkboard for like 4 or 5 days.
No, without a doubt. Not a few of the farms.
Yeah, but not just licensing fees. If you fix metric, you're going to lower that by
If they fix metric,
90% gone.
And the industry collapses and restarts.
Well, that's
in California.
My thing is my suggestion is just give them a score, and then so we know.
That's a fun reality.
No, but it doesn't collapse anything. So
I know, but that's
it would only hurt the big guys going out for big capital raises.
No, but that's not the case. I mean, I have a business partner that got arrested by Homeland Security 2 years ago for 150 pounds. So Homeland Security.
Yeah, but in theory you don't know. So
No.
I've been in depositions with the Glass House.
But you got a testing score.
No, I'm not.
You're an F for
we're-
metric.
we're-
Then you would be the first person.
No,
that people
I'm not
would look
talking about the
at.
testing. I'm talking about the backdooring. So what I'm saying
Oh,
is,
or for the backdooring. I
Yeah.
mean, but if you got an F score in the backdooring and that was publicly.
no, they already know. What do you mean? They know. You don't think they know that Glass House is 80-90% backdoor? They know. But you know who doesn't know? The investor class that keeps pumping money into that company when all they're doing is creating a problem.
But that's when it matters.
What I'm saying
But wait,
is,
hold on. That's when the investor class knows is the only thing that matters because then it's,
so if they had a score,
because the only things change by the movement of money.
No, I
they
get
don't
it.
change
That's
by
my
the
point.
laws.
So if they had a score, obviously the market would collapse at this point if they got rid of metric. And the incentive is they don't want to do it because based on our calculations, I did the math on the licenses, about 68, 70 million of it comes from cultivation licenses, right? So they like the money. Right? This is separate than the tax money. That goes to the DCC, which is a government agency. They get 135 million. If they shrink that down to 6 million, they're fucked. What I'm saying is we understand the back door needs to be relied upon. We're not trying to destroy the industry. It would be a slow walk away from that. Or maybe someday we get an international market, national market. However, if Glass House had a 12, because only 12% of their product was making it through, and my other suggestion is don't make it a blind look through. So Kyle Kazan can't sit in a deposition and say, well, I really don't know. If we could see, we would see. And he can go to his investors and be like, we're vertically integrated. It's like, bro, if you went to every store in California, you wouldn't be vertically integrated. So now
they're vertically integrated into New York.
Yeah, exactly. So they have 10%, let's say, going through the legal market. Say it's 15, just be generous. Their score would be 15. So they could continue to do business. Right. But you know what they wouldn't be able to do?
It'd be hard to raise money.
It'd be hard to raise money. And so that rule would only choke out the big boys. The little guy up in Humboldt that's backdooring to keep his lights on, he's not going to get venture capital. So if he has a 12 score, he still has the plausible deniability.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Your push against Glass House is what brought some visibility to metric, but how fucking quick did that story go away? All right, how quick did the backdooring story? No major news organization has really covered it the right way because it's terrifying. Because when you start peeling back what's really going on, you learn things that destroy the social contract with yourself and the government. Because it's willful. It's just not being ignored.
Well, I haven't seen.
There's a willful complicitness to it all.
I even see people who I somewhat think are intelligent.
But it's it's all connected to the bigger money that's behind the government because it's the people that are put into power by the big money saying, no, don't do anything yet. It's not ready.
Right.
It's not yet. Wait.
100%.
We'll enforce it when it's going to be the cheapest for us to come in and just swallow this multi-billion-dollar international industry that all these fucking idiots that lived in Humboldt and the Trinity, they built it for us. And we're just going to let them fucking be a slave to this shit, and then we're going to chew it up when they've got nothing left, where there's no fight fucking left.
That's what's going to happen.
They're going to give it to us willingly. They're going to hate it by the time we're done with them.
And by the way, that's not conspiracy talk.
I think that's a fucking fact.
It's a fucking fact. And maybe it didn't start
and
that.
So this is
it
why
might not have started that way, but now they're self-aware. And I have from reliable people, they're just waiting for tobacco and alcohol. I don't actually think it's pharma. I think it's tobacco and alcohol. They'll develop drugs, but tobacco and alcohol are both losing market share to what? Weed. They gotta get
right.
it.
And I'm going to circle back one thing. So back to the chubby turd. All right. Dude, you could be helping us with it's clear that some people have the power to influence the masses, right? And create incredible brands. All right. But if you thought a little bit about it more beyond just yourself and whatever deficiencies you're trying to fill with your toxic weed brand, you could actually do something awesome. Right?
Yeah,
they could do something awesome because it's those brands that are going to have value when the big fucking whales come in and swallow everything up.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Are they contemplating that, or are they contemplating just the exit?
That's what I'm saying. They're hanging on long enough for the exit, but this is what I want us to do as the rest of us that are going to be exhausted and beat to shit. I want to give the brands that are waiting for the exit and basically raping our consumers and poisoning our consumers and deceiving all of them, like just deception. I want to beat them up now and make them as tired as we're going to be in the next 10 years so they figure out that they got to jump on our side and work together. Well, or they won't. That's not even an option. Well, we'll just devalue all these brands.
So back to the one brand
that are doing these things. Like, don't give them the pass,
right?
Because we have to create our brand, the brand of cannabis, especially from California. It still fucking hangs. Like what we're able to do, the big companies aren't going to be able to do. They're still going to want it. But if we have people that are not doing it the right way, you don't have to be perfect. But don't go, everything we just talked about, like, don't do that. Just don't do that. Don't, like, openly market to kids. Don't put termite spray in your products. Don't do that shit. That's, like, the dumbest thing you can do, and it's going to make it the easiest for the industry to get sucked up.
What do you say to this is going to be a fun one, and I'm just asking it I want a fun answer. What do you say to we didn't know, we relied on the labs, and the farmers did it to us?
Or it's the lab's fault. Or it's the DCC's fault.
What do you say? What do you say to a brand that blames it on the labs and or the farmers and says they were an innocent victim? Or not every brand.
Right.
This particular brand. What do you say? And look, I know a lot of rumors. I'm not going to repeat rumors.
Right. No, I mean, I just don't. I've been in the industry long enough. I've been around enough brands, and I've seen enough where there's no way you didn't know. I'm sorry. Let's say that's the argument, right?
That's the argument.
Okay, that's the argument. Great.
So let's go back. I'm teeing it up for you to
let's
hit
go
it.
back to 2019.
Right.
All right, when the vape crisis started, and I forget the name of the kid that passed away from smoking a vape from this brand, right? If that happened and your brand survived that, you better for fucking sure be 100% that never fucking happened again. But then you had a dozen plus more recalls from that time to this time, and now there's 50 more. Fuck you, you piece of shit, lying, deceptive fucking poisoner. There's no way I buy that for a fucking second. And you're a moron if you believe that person. You are the densest fucking block in the room. Because if someone died from your product, or even let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, it was a knockoff of their product. Doesn't matter. It's my name was in that, my brand name was in that fucking, all those write-ups. An entire crisis started around vaping. Vaping was being taken off the shelves entirely for nicotine cannabis. It was a panic. And then COVID hit and they got a little bit of a pass because the attention diverted, right? But if that happened and then I got that pass, I'd be like, yo, we got to make sure this is never correlated to us ever again. We dodged a fucking bullet. Let's bring the executives together. We're going to implement these things to make sure that never happens. But then you have dozens of more recalls and then 50 more in 1 year. And then you're going to blame the farm.
So then,
Fuck off.
So
What, dude, come on. Like, what world do we? This is the part of it where people say this to me.
So then,
and I'm like, dude, I want to go I might as well just go piss in the fucking wind.
So I think our pee, like, hopefully is landing into the ocean. We're
Not if you're pissing in the Santa Monica Pier.
But so then, how do people? So then you got these major personalities. I don't know if they're personalities, pages, whatever, online that saying different stuff about. Well, this is people huffing on nitrous oxide. That's more chemical. Or, hey, it's in the food too. How do they justify that?
It's not 1,000 times the limit that you're allowed to use for structural pest control. All right.
So how do we deal with the people?
What's in the food?
How do we deal with people that are?
Those are stupid arguments.
No, I get it. But so, like, putting the argument.
I'm sorry,
we
I'm
agree.
fucking fired up.
Go,
right
dog, get it. Besides the fact the argument is fucking stupid, how do we deal with the people that are promoting that argument?
I mean, you meme the fuck out of them.
Like Brett Michaels and shit, or like actually productive?
I think enough people just need to. I mean, for me, it's like this is where the memeing started. It's like you just highlight how ridiculous this is. Like this is hilarious, and the people that are buying into that to absolve themselves for their own sins, instead of deal with whatever they did and the feelings that, like, we've all done fucked up shit and we all have to deal with that and feel that shame. And the shame is what drives you to make different decisions.
Not everybody, and I think some of my issue with it, God damn, I can't believe I'm going to say this. The lack of shame, I think, was the nail in the coffin for me. I'm just going to say it on camera. The lack of shame was the nail in the coffin.
Right.
Right?
We know.
Dude, but maybe some people aren't capable of having that.
There are a number of people that have been captured by a demonic force in this world. It's clear. But the way that you change that is by standing up for what's right. Like, the more that we normalize it, the more that we're collectively fucked.
So now you have people, basically batting for, whatever, it's no big thing.
They will regret it because those people.
History's going to look.
They will regret it mortally, and I know that because I've seen it firsthand.
I do think that,
I highly recommend change your ways.
Yeah,
you can still change your ways. You can still make the shift. You can still own the fact that you fucked up, and you can then become a force of good in this world and still sell weed and still have a great brand. There's people in this industry, because we're like a black sheep, you get so many passes to come back.
I do think we get a lot of passes.
We get a lot of passes because we're not taken seriously.
Well, and then for me, it's like, it's also, and I told this to Paige, because I'd done a few interviews with her. I didn't like the characterization that it was like, whatever it was, 38 out of 52. No, you hit on a brand and then bashed it, right? It was a decent percentage. And then, as somebody in the legal industry.
Right, but I think that has to do with some of the subtext around who that brand is marketing to. That brand is paying YouTube influencers whose demographic are 12 to 18. All right, that brand is...
That I didn't know.
That brand is marketing into a underage audience, and you can't really call it out.
Right. What I'm always concerned about...
But you just have to look at it.
Yeah, what I'm always a little concerned about, and I think it's, again, at some point you got to take a stand. I don't want
the most vulnerable consumers, like kids in high school. That I'm not promoting that. I'm not saying that, but that's like where most people started smoking weed, and that's where you fuck your brain up the most.
Yeah, I mean, look,
with this shit.
For me, like, and I obviously can't do it legally, and I wouldn't, and I'm not promoting it. But like, in so much as I was in some alternative universe where there was no laws, and my kid was like at a party and was like gonna try a vape, right, and like not tell me,
right?
I would rather just like run in there,
and give them a clean product. We can't do that. But
it's sort of Cat 4.
But that's right. But we can't. So we have to change the outside world,
right?
And so the other thing too is that, like, some of these brands, like I have a friend, I'm not going to name any names, but I have a friend who had one of the best testing labs in Sonoma County, and her lab was shut down due to exterior pressure from brands that she failed, right?
Josh has one flower client left.
Right, okay.
He's getting clients now. And again, for the record, I'm not in business with him.
All right.
I just like what he's doing, and he's a good tester.
Right. But I know people that have run quality labs that have had to shut things down because they've had people with weapons show up for farms showing up with a crew to put a gun in their face for failing their tests. Right. So like we are moving out of a world of organized crime into a world of mainstream commerce. But at the same time, the world of mainstream crime is moving into organized crime.
Well, the DCC set up so that organized crime's encouraged.
Right, but
right.
That's why. But that's what I'm saying.
So there could be more canopy.
That's what I'm saying.
So we could collect more.
The mainstream world is becoming more like organized crime, while we are coming from organized crime, trying to be more like the mainstream world.
That's a crazy paradox. That's a good point.
Right. So, but in that transitional tipping point is where we have a chance to actually do something fucking radical.
Yeah.
Right? But it's going to take balls. And I'll tell you what, if losing your Instagram account is going to ruin your life, then you ain't cut out for this fucking fight.
Fuck no. Yeah,
right? Because that shit's fucking tiddlywinks.
Yeah, it's tiddlywinks.
Take every Instagram count down, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a shit. Like,
yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like, I mean, I give a fuck a little, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's not going to, as soon as I got it back on, in fact, my advice was if I do get it back.
But that's the interesting thing is like the online death is almost equivalent to the real death in today's world. Like you are nothing without that online persona, which is something to kind of pick apart. And really it's like, a good solar flare would reset everything on that, because then people would come back to real world for a minute, and then everything would change.
No, it's kind of relaxing. Like, at first you're a little annoyed, and then am I going to get it back? But like 2 or 3 days without it, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of nice. I got the backup, but like it's different. But it's a little different. I knew it was coming. I saw it coming from a mile away. At least we could collab this post I'm going to put up now, because I couldn't even collab. They already had me all fucked up on the other one. But so I do think, and I'm going to say this, and then I'll let you put your final thoughts in. I'm so convicted that this is the future. And not to say that this is like a story in the typical sense, but every good story has an antagonist or 2 or 3.
Right.
And I'm laughing at the antagonist right now for taking the positions they're taking, because I could already see the future, like not in the typical way. Not that, I have like, I'm not saying like, I could see into the future. I'm just saying I can see this future so clearly in my mind's eye that I know that's where it's going. The standardization is going, and everybody who offered resistance to that, like, it is my initial reactions, anger, and I had some fun online. But from there, I'm like, it's really just pity. Because in 2 years or a year, or even fucking maybe it happens sooner, when like we move it to where it's going to go, and people look back and we're like, oh, dude, these motherfuckers over here played for Team Poison. Right. Like, what? Really? That's the team you wanted to play for? And when there's a standardized testing, there's a really good methodology. Everybody's on board with it. We now have clean product. Then you're going to try to jump on the bandwagon and say, "Oh no, I've been on Team Clean, the entire time." Don't remember that post where I compared weed to to nitrous oxide, right? Just because I have 2 tanks in my house. So, look, it's a good discussion. We could go all night. I do think it's important to elevate the conversation back out of the gutter, stress the importance of clean weed, whatever we call it. Clean vapes, clean weed, keeping people safe. I'll let you wrap it up with your final thoughts.
My number one thing is around all this too is we can't have all of the consequences of this come back to the farmers. Our farmers are getting hammered in the state right now. A lot of them we've lost. A lot more we're going to lose this year because of where the price point's at. There's like an incredible oversaturation from a handful of people, and then the smaller farmers are trying to compete with that. And the smaller farmers is where the art, the passion, and the joy of this business started from, and I hope will continue. So all of this will end up becoming like that argument. Like, we didn't know it was the farmer's fault or it was the lab's fault, and all that's going to do is work out the good farmers that are trying their hardest. So we need to slow down that part of the conversation and start listening to more of the farms. We need to have private and open conversations about what's going on that's not going to get blasted, so we can come up with solutions and avoid future fiascos, right? That's very important. If we're going to self-regulate, We need to be able to be like, here's a skeleton in the closet. Okay, let's just be honest about it, right? If that company that we've been talking about, that I've been hammering on, if they were just honest, like, I'm like, cool, dude, I would have loved to help you find better solutions. Like, I work with a nursery. I can source some of the best product in the state, right? But that wasn't the case. And the other thing I'm going to say is, you know, dude, you can change this now. Like, you'll never like me, and I'm okay with that. But you know who you are. I'm talking directly to you. Please go spend a month or maybe a day or maybe 2 weeks in a cancer ward. I'd like for you to have a little bit of the experience that I grew up with so you understand why I'm so passionate about this and why this hurts. Like, it hurts to see somebody not care this much. And it hurts because I know what it is. I know what the consequences it is. So I implore people that think that it's not a big deal to go spend time and hear people's stories that are on the remaining days, maybe kids, maybe go to a children's hospital to understand what this chemistry will do to young kids, and then come back to your business and figure out where your alignment is, you know? And I think that's a good exercise. Like, go experience the consequences before it's too late.
Man, really well said. That's just fucking incredible. I got nothing else to say to close out the episode, but, you know, make vapes great again. It's a catchy phrase. It really means keeping people safe. Nelson just laid it down, man. One of the real ones in the game, you know, acts as the conscience of the industry when it gets off track. You know, really an honor to have him here. Consider him a really good friend, an honest broker. You know, in so much as there's ever been a disagreement, the disagreement was only on trying to make things better for everybody. And, you know, hope you enjoyed this episode. We're going to try to get it out quick since the topic's hot. Again, let's elevate it a little bit. It's been fun to play in the gutter. I think that's an important point to make. We're going to end this one. Weed for the people.